Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here with the Sheeple.com Daily News Brief. Let me start off with TechCrunch.com. This is an amazing article that just came out about 45 minutes ago, detailing the fact that Facebook is now quietly testing warnings on fake news. That's right, because fake news, my friends, has become such a pandemic that Facebook feels the need to be able to censor. It just gives all of these social media platforms that perpetrate and perpetuate the propaganda. Yeah. Just gives them license to go and take it 10 steps, 100 steps too far. Unbelievable. Anyway, John Constantine writes, Facebook is showing red warning labels about fake news, listing links in the news feed for some users in what appears to be a limited test. TechCrunch obtained the screenshots of this warning from a source. And the warning, my friends, reads, "This website is not a reliable news source. Reason? Classification pending." In some cases, it'll say state-sponsored news. State-sponsored news, right? Because of the Russian narrative. Now, mind you, and I want to put this out because it's just unbelievable. The police state has now gotten into even social media. Of course, you know, they were always surveilling it. But now they're going to tell you what's okay to say and what not to say because you can't control that. You, my friends, aren't smart enough to be able to make those decisions on your own. So they're going to do it for you. I hope everybody feels comfy cozy right now. The warnings are one of the first visible signs, TechCrunch says, of the new approaches to fighting fake news that Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg laid out last month. We've reached out to Facebook, TechCrunch has, with a request for comment and will update if they receive a response. The fake news flag test appears to have been running for over a week, though they seem to be vanishing from some users' feeds as quickly as they appear. That behavior, of course, is in line with the way Facebook regularly tests new product features through limited, live rollouts to small swaths of its massive user base. The warning message in the screenshot is for an instance of the test that appeared live today. It showed a flag from a story from OccupyDemocrats.com, which, by the way, is a website that's included on widely circulated lists of fake news sources. The headline read, 2,000 veterans just arrived at Standing Rock to form a human shield around protesters. Very interesting that particular headline was flagged, especially considering the fact that mainstream media has a blackout on the Standing Rock protests and what it's all about. And they're using this story in particular to test their censorship. So let me go on. It says, notably, this particular news story checks out as true and just so happened to be picked up by the New York Times and Reuters, among other reliable, quote unquote, fact-checking outlets. Now that suggests that Facebook is blacklisting entire sites rather than individual news stories. It also demonstrates the potential for false positives in Facebook's system, where accurate stories are slapped with the not reliable warning. Hacker News used the same warning feature last week. Now, Facebook has endured intense criticism for allowing fake news to proliferate on its news feed, as some believe hoaxes and misleading stories helped Donald Trump get elected. Folks, I mean, really, do you think it was fake news stories that got Donald Trump elected? Or could it have been the establishment and the powers that shouldn't be in their behavior and the globalism and all that? Could it be the fact that people are suffering now more than they have in quite some time? Could it be that the quality of life has eroded drastically in the United States? You know, could it be that cost of living has skyrocketed as wages have stagnated? There are a whole host of things that have played into this. Now, the article concludes and says fake news is a scourge that threatens an informed democracy, though it would be risky for Facebook alone to become the truth police. Without proper transparency, that could lead to censorship and allegations of bias, as well as being an operational nightmare for the company. Working with outside verification services, media, or academic institutions, because they aren't fake, right? Why, that could allow Facebook to classify fake news without assuming full control or responsibility for the decisions of what's true. I will agree that if Facebook decided to pass the buck onto other verification services, why then Facebook has plausible deniability. But that's not the purpose of this. The true purpose of this is censorship. Fake news is, I wouldn't call it a scourge. I would call it people's lack of discernment. And we have to understand that the mainstream media outlets that people have trusted for decades have done nothing but peddle fake news most of the time. And that there are documented government programs and operations that have also taken the mainstream media and made them propaganda mouthpieces for the government and the powers that shouldn't be. I mean, this is the way it works. Fake news is a scourge, but there's no real outlet out there that's 100% right. So you could, by definition, slap a fake news stamp on any site out there at any given time. Or what we could do is respect the First Amendment in this country, understand that people have free speech, and that there's no real way that you can protect people from free speech. Instead, the only real protection is for people themselves to take personal responsibility and educate themselves on the issues. And then they can use their education and their life experience as a litmus test against what they're reading. I don't know. I don't see what the big deal is about that. Yahoo News also reports that Facebook is developing AI to flag offensive live content. So now they're going to take AI and it's going to be looking at the live streams in real time and making a determination of whether or not it's offensive. And if it is, it will flag it as such. Listen to this. It says, Facebook is working on automatically flagging offensive material in live video streams, building on a growing effort to use artificial intelligence to monitor content, says Joaquin Candela, the company's director of applied machine learning. The social media company has been embroiled in a number of content moderation controversies this year, from facing an international outcry after removing an iconic Vietnam War photo due to its nudity, to allowing the spread of fake news on its site. There it is again, fake news. Which, by the way, let's not forget, fake news has been peddled by every mainstream media outlet out there. So let's not be judgmental. Now, Candela reports that Facebook's has been increasingly using AI to find offensive material. It's an algorithm that detects nudity, that detects violence, or any of the things that are not according to our policies. Now, if you read Facebook's policies along with, say, YouTube's community guidelines, you'll come to find out that they're very vaguely written to give them a wide swath of what they can and can't take down and what they can and can't do. Let's also remember, too, folks, that Facebook and YouTube are two platforms that are privately owned. So you can call it censorship, and it is what it is. It is censorship. But as long as we rely on a private-owned platform, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. And really what we need is an open source platform that's out there that can do that. The issue is, every time something like that comes around, it's immediately hijacked or bought up or any myriad of ways that it's taken away. So this is a very, very hard thing to overcome. Now, it says the automated system also is being tested on Facebook Live, the streaming video service for users to broadcast live videos Using AI to flag live videos is still at large in the research phase and has two challenges, Candela said. One, your computer vision algorithm has to be fast. And I think we can push there. And the other one is that you need to prioritize things in the right way so that a human looks at it, an expert who understands our policies, and then takes it down. Says Facebook says it also uses automation to process the tens of millions of reports it gets each week to recognize duplicate reports and route the flag contents to reviewers with the appropriate subject matter expertise. So you can see that not only do you have the corrupt nature of censorship in here, but you also have, because AI is still in its relative infancy, you have a lot of tech challenges to overcome. And that's just causing a major problem for people who want to put stuff out there on social media. And anybody that remembers what it was like when YouTube was in its infancy or when Facebook started out, and you were able to send something out to everybody in your friends list or anybody that followed you, and they all saw it at one time, it was an amazing, effective tool. But that tool has been neutered through corporate interest, through censorship, and through political motivations and pushing these false narratives like fake news. Because to be honest with you, folk, everybody peddles fake news at some point in time. It's very, very hard. Now, the American Mirror, Kyle Olson's site, has an article today, Obama laments fake news. Unfortunately, he was lamenting fake news to the rape hoax peddler Rolling Stone magazine, if you remember that. Kyle Olson writes, if the Democrats didn't have chutzpah, they wouldn't have anything at all. President Obama gave an interview to the Rolling Stone magazine and lamented the impact he believes so-called fake news had on the presidential election. According to Rolling Stone, Obama said, one of the challenges that we've been talking about now is the way that social media and the internet have changed what people and how people receive the news. He says, I was just talking to my political director, David Simius, and he was looking at his Facebook page and some links from high school friends of his, some of whom were now passing around crazy stuff, about how Obama has banned the Pledge of Allegiance. He says, this is not simply an economic issue. This is a cultural issue and a communication issue. I'll say it's a communication issue, President Obama. Why? Because when you censor people and they can't get their message out, I'd say that's a communication problem. It doesn't matter if you agree with the message or not. The fact is, if a person wants to say something and put it out there in the public domain, they should have every right and equal ability to do so, just as if you were able to say it. Now, Salon even reported in early November, a federal jury found Friday Rolling Stone writer Sabrina Rubin Erdely responsible for defamation of a former associate dean at the University of Virginia. Rolling Stone and parent company Wenner Media was found liable in a $7.5 million libel suit filed in the wake of a campus rape expose that was eventually discredited. Mainstream Rolling Stone magazine. It doesn't matter how reputable or how credentialed a news media outlet is. It doesn't matter how well-intentioned they are. There are times when this occurs. It doesn't matter. You cannot put a label on news outlets, independent or otherwise. It is strictly ad hominem attack. Zero Hedge has a fake news piece today. Newsweek. Oh, hey, that's a credentialed, reputable, mainstream media site. Well, they admit that they didn't even write or even read the Madam President issue. Isn't that interesting? It says Newsweek political editor Matthew Cooper looked as though he had a rough month when he appeared on the Tucker Carlson show last night to discuss the Madam President debacle. See, while printing and distributing of the erroneous commemorative edition magazine, that was embarrassing enough, Cooper also realized that no one at Newsweek wrote the Hillary article or even bothered to proofread it before it was shipped off to stores around the country. Now that, my friends, is responsible reporting. Frankly, it's difficult to discern between fact and fiction with the story, but given the quality of the writing, we suspect Cooper had little choice but to distance himself and his team completely from the magazine. Here's a small excerpt in which Trump supporters are again referred to as deplorables who called to repeal the 19th Amendment. Oddly, Zero Hedge covered the election pretty thoroughly and didn't recall anyone calling for the repeal of the 19th Amendment. So apparently they missed it. I know us at Sheeple, we missed it. But hey, here's the quote. As the tone of the election grew darker and more bizarre by the day, President-elect Hillary Clinton went high when her opponent went even lower. No stranger to trudging through the mire of misogyny in her career as First Lady, Senator, and Secretary of State, President-elect Clinton continued to push for an issues-based campaign, even as a handful of Trump's most deplorable supporters, seeing the wide margin Clinton held among female voters, called to repeal the 19th Amendment. On Election Day, Americans across the country roundly rejected the kind of fear and hate-based conservatism peddled by Donald Trump and elected the first woman in the U.S. history of president. Yeah. And that's not fake news? That's not peddling fake news? How come Newsweek doesn't have a fake news? Where's properknot.com? Where are you? Where are you, Proper Knot? Newsweek. Hello there. What's going on? You see what I'm saying? Even the most reputable news outlets screw up. Now, mind you, most independent news outlets don't do so in such a nefarious purpose. Oftentimes, it's just because there are strictly limited budgets and you have one person trying to do a lot of things, whereas mainstream media outlets have vast resources, and this kind of stuff should be totally and completely unacceptable. So you see, folks, the whole fake news narrative is bunk. You cannot label any one outlet as fake news if you disagree with them or not, because every single one of them airs from time to time, and every single one of them could be labeled fake news. Instead, what should happen is people will normally go and support sources or sites or television outlets that are reputable, that they can trust. And that's why you've seen a shift away from the mainstream media to independent media, because people don't trust the mainstream media anymore. They would rather go with people whose hearts are genuinely in the right place than to go with open deceivers that have sold their souls to mammon. I'm Joe Joseph. This was your Daily News Brief brought to you by thedailysheeple.com. Subscribe to our newsletter at thedailysheeple.com and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll have another news brief for you tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.